What's happening, YouTube? Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the channel. Got a quick and easy one for you today, guys. We're going to talk about the most recent tools that I bought that was a complete bust to me. This is going to be the most recent. I bought plenty of tools in the past. I can't even count how many tools that I actually thought was going to be great. Then when I got them, I was like, oh man, they suck. So anyway, this is going to be the most recent 5 tools that I bought that I thought was going to be great, but ended up sucking. So let's check it out. Okay, so this is not going to be in any particular order. They all equally suck in my opinion. So the first item that I was pretty excited about buying, thought was going to be great, was this Harbor Freight Earthquake cordless grinder. Okay, so the purpose for buying this was I wanted a cordless angle grinder. I had a corded one at the time, and that thing seen better days, and I wanted to replace it because I didn't feel it was safe to use anymore. So I wanted to buy a cordless one. Now when I was shopping around for a cordless one, you know, a lot of times it's cheaper if you could just get the tool. And I have the Harbor Freight Earthquake impact gun. So since I already had this tool and I had the battery for it, I thought, you know what, since I already have a battery for this, I'd probably come out a little bit cheaper if I just went ahead and bought the Earthquake version of the angle grinder. So I went ahead, bought the tool, and I used this tool primarily to grind down some concrete. So I bought several of these grinding stones to get some grinding work done on a remodel project that I was working on. Well, this angle grinder was so frustrating during that project. It really was. This thing would keep cutting off. I would check the battery, make sure the battery was full. The battery was full. I thought maybe I was putting too much pressure on it. So I backed off some of the pressure and was, you know, letting the grinder do all the work, so to speak. And that wasn't the problem. It would keep cutting out on me regardless. It has a poor duty cycle. It's just not a good tool. They dropped the ball on this one. I was excited about buying this tool because like I said, I had this Harbor Freight Earthquake impact, and I had so much faith in this gun because I seen what this gun can do. I've taken off head bolts with this, crank bolts with this, all type of suspension bolts with this. Basically, I don't know if there's a fastener that I haven't been able to get off with this as far as automotive goes, and living in California at that as well. Could be different for guys who live where it gets cold. But anyway, this is going to be number 1. Don't recommend this tool, of a tool that I was really excited to buy, and it was a complete bust. Okay, so the next item in the hot seat is going to be this Noco mini jump pack. When I bought this thing, I don't know, back in maybe like 2017, maybe, there was a lot of YouTubers demoing this tool, talking about how great of a tool it is. So of course I bought it and didn't really like this tool. It didn't work out great for me. This is the 1000 amp battery or jump pack, and it just really didn't work great. After jumping one car, I would go from like 100% all the way down to like 25%. So I really didn't find it that useful. These days I keep it under the seat in my car, but I've also had situations where this thing wouldn't jump the battery. I would still get, you know, the typical click, 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 click sound of the starter not having enough juice, as it were, to you know, crank over the engine. So I don't like this particular tool at all. It's not as good as the reviews from a lot of people online. So if you are in the market for like a little small compact jump pack, this is not the way to go. I thought it was going to be much better than it was, because it's solid. It looks like it has a great build quality, and it just seems to be like a well-designed product. But really, when it comes down to performance, it really doesn't perform well. Like I said, jumping one vehicle will drop it down to 25%. And I'm not talking about a completely dead vehicle that left the high beams on overnight. I'm talking about vehicles that sat in the shop for a while and you go to crank it and it's a slow crank. And you put this on here, yes, it will jump it, but afterwards it's down to 25%, and you got to take all day to charge it again before you could jump another vehicle. So this is a one-car jump. In my opinion, you're not going to be able to jump multiple vehicles. Obviously, it's small. I'm not expecting it to be able to jump multiple vehicles like a big jump pack, but I am expecting it not to drop down to 25%. At least drop 1/4%. At least drop halfway, so that recharging it is not as bad. But this thing, you will rob all of this little battery power from this pack on one jump. Anyway, enough of this tool. So this is another tool that I thought was going to be great when I bought it, and it turned out that it sucked. All right, so next up are these little socket magnets. Basically, these are little magnets that you could put inside of a socket to make the socket magnetic. So we've all been in this situation before, where you need to put a fastener inside a socket like this. Right? You need to put it down in the engine compartment, set it in somewhere, and get it started. But what'll happen is naturally it'll fall out, right? So to remedy that situation, I bought these magnets that'll go inside the socket, so that wouldn't be an issue for me. I'd be able to put this down in the engine compartment, the fastener will stay in there, I can get it started by hand, and then, you know, no harm, no foul. Well, these things suck. They don't fit inside the socket very well, for one. So you have to really cram these things inside the socket. And once you do cram it inside the socket, you're not getting it back out. Good luck trying to get this thing back out. There's no way to get it back out. You'd have to try to get a pick or something to dig it out, or come in from the backside over here with something and try to tap it out. But it's the majority of this thing is plastic with just that little magnet right there. So you end up gouging the plastic all up, jacking the plastic all up. So it's really hard, even with it being barely in like this. Like even in this situation, I could barely get it out. So I just found these not to be as useful, and so these were a bust in my opinion. Something that I thought was going to be so clever and so great, that's really going to help me, turned out to be a big bust. Instead, I ended up doing this, just basically stuffing like a paper towel, piece of paper towel in there, and then sticking the fastener in there. And as you can see, the fastener won't come out. So using this worked so much better than buying those magnets. All right guys, so next up is going to be these Tecton ratchets that I bought, that I thought were going to be great. Turned out they weren't so great. Not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about these ratchets. If you follow my channel, you pretty much know already how I feel about these ratchets. I did a timing chain on a Lincoln Navigator, and I used this ratchet and I used this ratchet when I did that timing chain on that. I believe it was an Aviator. That's what it was, an Aviator. When I did the timing chain job on there, I had pretty much made myself use the 3/8 drive and a 1/4 drive that whole job to really work with the ratchet and try to, like, you know, become one with the ratchet, if you will. But I never could get there. It was just awkward. I didn't like using it. I found myself throughout that whole job just like, really wanting to go and grab a better ratchet. These ratchets just didn't do it for me. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, like I said, about some of the things that I don't like about it, but I'm just going to say that you know, if you follow my channel, you probably know already anyway, but I'm just definitely putting this on the list as a tool that I thought was going to be great. That turned out to suck. All right, so next up is going to be these padded sockets that I bought from Harbor Freight. Yes, I actually thought a Harbor Freight tool was going to be great. What was I thinking, right? Anyway, I thought, how could you go wrong with a padded socket? You know, it's just a socket with some padding on it so you don't damage a customer's rim if they bring you a car with some nice wheels on it. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I used this thing once and never used it again. I think even Harbor Freight knows that these suck because I don't even know if they still carry these. They might, but I know they have another version of these type of sockets. Because even they know they suck. Anyway, I believe I used this 21 millimeter once or twice, and I just found it to be a terrible socket. It actually did more harm than good, believe it or not. Luckily, it was on a customer who didn't care, and the damage wasn't bad. It wasn't to the rim, it was to the lug nut itself. I kid you not, when I took the lug nut off with this socket, the lug nut had a bunch of burrs on it. It looked like someone took a hammer and chisel and just made a bunch of little burrs all over the lug nut. That's what the socket did to it. So, I mean, the padded portion to these sockets are useless. Maybe you can just take this padding off of these sockets and maybe put it on another socket and just throw these away. It's probably the best use of this set at this point, in my opinion, is to probably just take the padded portion off and slide it on a better socket. These sockets are terrible, and like I said, when I bought this, I thought this was going to be great. You know, how could you mess this up? But they managed to mess this up. So this is going to be number 5 on my list of items that I thought was going to be great, but ended up sucking. And I also got one honorable mention. All right, guys, so this is one honorable mention here. This is a Mako power bar. When I bought this tool, I really had like high hopes for this tool. I thought it was going to be a great tool. I put it in as an honorable mention because it doesn't like quite suck as bad as the other ones. But this tool is somewhat gimmicky, and I found myself really hammering on the other end, just like repeatedly hammering and hammering and hammering to try to get a harmonic balancer bolt off. And honestly, like, I don't have time for that. No one has time for that. You need to just get in there and knock that bolt out and keep moving. You really don't have time to keep on hammering on this thing to get it out. And I think in a situation like that, it no longer becomes a time saver. And so anyway, I found that using this tool is somewhat gimmicky, and I'm always able to just use a chain wrench and wrap it around a harmonic balancer and just getting a breaker bar and busting it loose if I can't get my impact gun in there. And that's the way I've always done it. I have gotten crank bolts off with this before, but also there's some vehicles that I haven't. For example, I did a video where I did a head job on a supercharged Range Rover. Check that video out if you haven't seen it, and you'll see me using this tool, just hammering away trying to take that crank bolt off. And finally I just, you know, got rid of the tool, wrapped a chain wrench and a rag around the harmonic balancer and lock it in place, and then grabbed the breaker bar and just bust the bolt loose. And it didn't even take that long. You know, I wasted my time sitting there hammering with this thing all day. It doesn't deliver nearly the amount of torque that it claims. I think it claims to deliver like something like 600 pounds of torque. I doubt it. So anyway, this was an honorable mention of a tool that I bought that I thought was going to be great, but it ended up kind of sucking. Okay guys, so that was my 5 most recent purchase of tools that I thought that was going to be great that turned out to not be so great. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I've bought plenty of tools that fall into this category, but that was my most recent. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. This is Bryan916. See you guys on the next one.